dignity must then result in productive activities of that land that we have so redistributed. Because with dignity comes a satisfactory livelihood. If you are pushed into poverty, into utter poverty, that is undignifying in itself. So our way ahead in land reform is therefore twofold. Accelerate the implementation of the Second Land Conference's resolutions, because that is what the nation asked us to do. That is how we all feel land reform should happen. Make that and do that in a very transparent and accountable manner, assure fairness, and assure that these assets that the state so provides are productively used, so that we, as the whole, as the nation, also gain from land reform. We want land to produce more. We want our economy to grow. We want more jobs that are land reform based to be created. So it is not only talk in political chambers, it is doing on the land that is important here. And of course we cannot engage in productive agriculture without the secure access of both water and land. The access to land, the access to water must be secure. A farmer must know, if I invest in this land, in the water infrastructure, it is for a long time, it is forever almost, secure, it's mine. I can make the best out of it and I can use all my means to bring about productive agriculture. We must have it secure. And therefore, the institutions like the Surveyor General, the Registrar of Deeds, the Valuer General, are so critical. These assets must be secure. We cannot have a system that invites the question, is it my land or is it not? Is the allotment that we have made for resettlement, is it secure? Can I bargain on it? Can I invest on it? Must be secure. And last but not least, and I'm now talking to the staff, it is our job, once we have secured access to the assets, secured access to land, we must now deliver the service to support the farmers that we have created and that are in existence. Existing farmers just as well as new farmers. We must support them. And our institutions that we have created must support farmers. They must not turn into burdens to farmers. And that's our job. We are not farmers ourselves, although I know some of you are. But your farming exercise should not be the priority of your sitting here. Your serving your fellow farmers, if you are a farmer, is the priority, as a staff member of the Ministry of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform. We must serve the people. If we do that, we will achieve our targets. And we will create that image of a society that is not fearful of hunger, not fearful of thirst, not fearful of not having wealth and a dignified livelihood. Now if we unpack this, and I'm trying to speed up, we must achieve national food self-sufficiency and thus food and nutrition security by unlocking the productive capacity in the agricultural sector. What immediately springs to mind is existing farmers. Do they get enough support to enhance their current production? Is the extensive farming style that we have in the livestock sector is that the optimal utilization of that land or not? We believe it is not. We can, by intensifying farming practices, by mechanizing some of the issues, we can produce more out of the same hectarage of land. But we must create policies that are enhancing that, that are bringing that about, without destroying the land, without destroying the rangelands, without destroying the water resources that we are using. We have green schemes. We have, as people, as state, invested billions in green schemes. The leader of the opposition last week tweeted, and what I read, he says, only dilapidated things he sees, nothing is producing, the agricultural sector is collapsing. Now, of course, he wants to create his own image. My answer to that is, yes, some green schemes are not doing well. And it is a sad picture if you see it. But it's not all green schemes. We have recovered a number of green schemes, which are actually doing exceptionally well. It is Musese, Mashare, Tunda, some other green schemes are doing okay. And by the way, the agricultural sector is not collapsing. The agriculture's GDP contribution for 2020 is now 9%, up from the 3.6 when we started the reform. And that is in spite of COVID and in spite of drought that we are recovering from. So the agricultural sector is not collapsing, it's the opposite, it's recovering. And it's contributing now 3 times as much as it did before. That is not the sign of a collapsing sector. It's a sign of a growing sector that is improving. But we can do much better. We must, of course, fix those green schemes that are not operating. We must get our new green scheme, Nakatal, in productive mode as quickly as possible. We know now what the mistakes are. The problems are that these green schemes face. And by and large, they are not failures of infrastructure, not failures of people that are farming there. It was a wrong management model that we tried to use. It was a model of state farms managed from head office in Windhoek. And that turned out to be very unproductive. You who are farmers know that farming is done best on the farm. You must take your decisions on the farm and you must implement your decision there and then. If you plant late, you will have less yield. If you plant early, same thing, less yield. If you fertilize at the wrong time, less yield. If you can't fix your equipment, less yield. So everything you do wrong, every delay reflects in a smaller yield. And that's what we saw. It took Agribusiness, who was the manager of the estate farms, sometimes months to decide and give the instruction, plow now. It took them too long to bring the money, the resources that are needed to maintain, to plow, to do things to the farm managers. And all that, at the end, came to the result that green schemes actually became loss-making. Now, with the financial situation being difficult, they ran out of money and some of these green schemes could not be maintained and infrastructure collapsed. Now that is so, but let's fix it. Cabinet has approved a new management model. It's our job to fix it, to implement that management model. And our job is to do that this year. We don't have to wait for a rainy season, we don't have to wait for a winter season. It's irrigation. You can plant during winter and summer. There are always any crops available. So, no excuses where we are having time till the rainy season. No, we have no time. They must be implemented, sorted out, the models approved. And we must engage the private sector to get the necessary resources, know-how, markets into the play that these bean skins can do what they must do, and that is bring about food security, bring about an export-orientated agricultural sector. And again, the question is agriculture doing so badly overall? It is not. Namibia is the only country in Africa who can export beef to Europe, to the United States, to China, and to the whole of Africa. There's no other country on the continent that can do that. So we have market access to the best paying markets in the world, and we can pick and choose which commodity goes to which market. Very, very few farmers have that possibility from a market access point of view. Of resolutions from the Second Land Conference were given to the high-level committee, which is constituted of all the representatives that participated in the land conference. And we have monthly meetings chaired by the Right Honourable Prime Minister, and the reports of how we implement the resolutions are published. You must have a copy. So if you ask how far we are in implementing the resolutions, it is in that report. I think there were is it 104 resolutions? 164 resolutions. We have broken them up in ongoing issues, in those that have been resolved, and in those that have legal difficulties. There are these three categories. We can give you the figures. There are some that are done, there are some that are ongoing, and there are some that cannot be implemented because we have legal impediments with them. But we are not leaving them there. We are having created a committee between us, Ministry of Justice, Office of the Prime Minister, and the Attorney General to discuss how we get around or solve these legal impediments that prevent us from implementing it. Now, with regard to the red line, first point I want to make is it's in court and it's sub judice. So to discuss why we defend it, you must wait for our affidavit. But suffice to say now is that there is not only the Second Land Conference's resolution to address the issues around the line, there is also a more recent cabinet decision, a set of decisions how to address the red line, and we do not have any quarrel. And it is our government's policy from the beginning to say we have to erode and do away with the divisive nature of the red line. But when it is a veterinary line that serves a purpose as a disease control mechanism, it would be harmful to both north and south of the red line if we don't do it, if we ignore it. We would lose our ability to create a disease-free farming area. But we will explain our position in our affidavit, and I'm not actually able to give you the whole motivation why we defend it. Now, your next question was about the fact that we had promised that the farming community in the northern areas will have access to markets. They in fact have. And I don't know whether it escaped your mind or your information. Northern beef is exported to South Africa, it's exported to other African countries, it's exported to China. And we do that through a commodity-based trade arrangement that we have implemented in the northern communal areas that help us to bridge the time we need to include areas of the north into the disease-free area. So the information that we do not export from the northern communal areas into foreign countries is wrong. We are. Now, commodity-based trade is a regime where you have the possibility to trade into the export market with beef, provided it adheres to a very strict regime. And the beef must come out of a specific zoned area. In Namibia we have got basically 3 zones. We have the disease-free zone that is south of the cordon fence. We have the disease zone where the disease is permanently prevalent. That's in the Zambezi and the Kavango, the eastern part of Kavango East. And then you have the zone that was it's a buffer zone. The disease is not prevalent, but there are risks that it can come in. That was the status that the whole northern area, except Zambezi and parts of eastern Kavango, had up to 2014. And 2014, Cabinet then took a decision that we must engage into a study that shows how to implement the removal of the fence. Implicitly it says remove the fence. But the cabinet decision said we must do it cautiously, we must look how we do it and come with the modalities how we do it. But then unfortunately, 2015, there was an outbreak of foot and mouth disease in the northern communal areas, the 4 O's. It was spread. So the status of the area changed. And we couldn't proceed with that plan because the disease status of the area changed. We then implemented the commodity-based trade, and it is hinged on cattle that is produced in these areas, the fact that it must be vaccinated, the whole herd must be vaccinated twice a year. Whatever is sold must be quarantined for 30 days. It must be slaughtered in a specific manner. It must be chilled, and then it must be worked in a specific manner so that it then gets the certificate that it is not infectious and can be exported. Now the infrastructure for that is in place. We have the quarantine camps, we have the cold storage, we have the abattoirs. But what happened then is something unforeseen. It was the worst drought ever. And the national herd, both north and south of the cordon fence, halved. The northern farmers tracked their cattle into southern Angola. So at the moment we have no abattoir in the northern areas that is actually operating other than small municipal abattoirs. They don't have cattle to slaughter. And the commodity-based trade value chain comes to a standstill because you don't get raw material, you don't get meat to process, not even to slaughter. So we have problems, and we have another outbreak. Last year we had an outbreak that came right down to Oshikoto. So it is a complexity and multiplicity of factors that came together that made it very, very difficult to make the progress we wanted to move the actual fence. Now, lastly, I want to ask a question, to you. We are hooked up on a fence as if it is the only fence in the country. If I go out of Windhoek, every road is fenced. Every game farm is fenced. In the communal areas we have fences, illegal and legal. So what is the hiccup about the fence? Are we not creating something in our imagination that is actually a normal farming practice? Fencing is, your yard is fenced, isn't it?
Yes.
Why do you fence it?
Yeah, to prevent.
To provide your neighbor an economic opportunity in your yard, or to leave him alone?
To leave them alone.
Yeah, you see.
Yeah. Some fences have rules, some do not.
No, but I think it is not the fence. My point is, it is not the physical fence that we are talking about and the removal of it. It will always be there. That double fence next to the Windhoek-Okahanya road is a cordon fence, is a veterinary cordon fence, which at the moment is not, it's only maintained, but it is not used as a barrier to move cattle because we are disease-free. But it is a fence that is there. It's a veterinary cordon fence. And there are a number of them in the country. That one being one of them. So the issue is not the fence. The issue is not the veterinary disease control issues. I think they are very legitimate and correct. It is the political, the socio-economic consequences of that veterinary borderline, which was legitimate, being misused for political reasons by our colonizers. The Germans created the fence. And basically what it said is, up to here is our political influence. There up north, we don't want to go there, leave them alone. And they justified it because of Rinderpest. The South Africans came, same argument. They wanted to compartmentalize the country and say, well, we change our political and economic policies in different ways. That was the divide and rule homeland policies. And they misused the veterinary fence for political purposes. That is the issue that we have to talk about. And that is the issue we are prepared to talk about. We have agreed. Those issues must be addressed. And as I said, we are trying. The export possibilities into China, into South Africa, into Africa, out of that is possible. In fact, if you eat a steak in Windhoek, it was a good chance that it is a steak from Katima, abattoir. We chilled, we prepared them, we brought them here to create a market for the farmers in the Namibia region, and then it is consumed here. Now, green schemes, you said all of them are not functioning. And I don't agree with you. There are a number of them that are producing very well. I gave the names to you. You asked the same question then this morning. This is why are the others not working? And I tried to explain in my statement that it is the management model that was the wrong model, and it therefore started to erode and came to a state where it collapsed. Some green schemes stopped functioning because also they ran out of money. Green schemes, the state green schemes were run by AgriBizDev. AgriBizDev was a state-owned enterprise, registered as a Section 21 company. It was them who had the responsibility to run green schemes. And AgriBizDev as a commercial entity was transferred to the Ministry of Public Enterprises. When we saw that new arrangement, we approached Cabinet and said we believe that arrangement is not correct. AgriBizDev is an entity that is at the core of agricultural activity. And green schemes should not be managed by a state-owned enterprise as if it is, a a hands-off business where the decisions are taken at a head office without the immediate knowledge on the part available. And Cabinet agreed. We convinced Cabinet that Agri-BizDev is not appropriately enabled and constituted to run green schemes. So Cabinet, just before the end of last year, said, now we agree, change the institutional arrangement. Green schemes are now with the Ministry of Agriculture. Go and solicit with the private sector how you can, as quickly as possible, get it going. And that was said because, you know, we ran out of money. The fiscal position has worsened because of pandemic. If we had the money, no problem. We could fix it immediately, but we don't. And that's the same for Nakatal. Nakatal was a phased program. It included a dam. It started with a feasibility study where we looked whether hydrologically the dam is suitable and whether there are soils in the area that lend themselves to irrigation. Both came out positive, 2 studies. When that was confirmed, Cabinet decided, okay, go ahead with building the dam. That project was concluded. Unfortunately, the budget overshoots of the dam were immense. It was about 1.6 billion, more expensive than tender. And these resources had to be tapped out of public resources, out of the budget. And it had bad ripple effects into the operation of other projects that the ministry had in the pipeline. Just to mention one, Wungu Wungu dairy farm was not completed because the money was taken to fund a legal obligation that we had under Nakatal. It's very unfortunate that it happened, but that's the factual situation. And the fiscal situation has not improved so that we can solve all the problems we have. That's why we have to rope in private sector, which is not a bad thing after all. We buy in technology, we buy in expertise, we buy efficiencies, and we can very quickly bring about progress. Example I can give, Musese was bankrupt. It was a leasehold agreement for that green scheme that Leader had with a farmer. It went bankrupt. Not a single corn of maize produced. We intervened. We gave a short-term lease to a different owner that went into partnership with the current leaseholder, and they had a bumper harvest after 1 year, making profits of 3 million after having fixed all the equipment. And that is because of our intervention and the great effort by the farmer himself. The green scheme, small-scale farmers attached to that green scheme are doing fine. Bumper harvest because the farmer helped them. That's the model that is working. Mashave is a model green scheme that has a mixture of maize, corn, and blueberry production. It's highly viable, highly profitable. It is because of a new model being introduced in green schemes. Itunda is the same. There we have an asparagus planting plant, a factory that adds value to the plant, and then we have also corn and wheat production. The corn and wheat production is not doing too well, but the asparagus production is doing exceptionally well. So there are good examples that show that the model that we are now trying, or that we are now implementing, not trying, and that is to partner up with a private sector entity, oblige that entity to better work with the small-scale farmers, and we actually move out of the management, out of the running of the farm. We just get a lease fee. But we don't disown, we don't sell the land. That stays our property.